I'm Jules and I run a company called Cosmic Workshop, and we specialise in leatherwork for the cosplay community. We do stuff for other kinds of customers as well, but we specialise in reproducing well-known pieces of work from things like Game of Thrones and the Marvel Universe. And we are based in Cheshire, in Warrington specifically, which is a great location for the business because we can get pretty much anywhere within a couple of hours, so it doesn't matter where customers are or where the events are that we might want to go. It's a pretty good central location. We've been established as Cosmic Workshop actually for around 12 years, but we were a very different business when we started out. I just kept the name, but the essence of the business changed. I was a secondary school teacher. I taught design and technology, like woodwork, metalwork, graphic products, a bit of electronics. And when I had my daughter, we moved counties and there was no D&T jobs that are around in the area. And I've always wanted to work for myself, always wanted to run a creative business. And literally, like, do you remember the records of achievements you get at high school? It even says in the back of that when I was like 14, 15, whenever you start writing it, one day I will run my own creative business, and ta-da! So basically we set it up, and you go with what you know when you first start a business. And coming out of teaching, I was always well renowned for teaching resources, workbooks, how-to guides, jigs for workshops and stuff. Kind of ahead of my time though. The schools that loved it, but they didn't really have the budget for it, and they had trouble kind of getting the justification for it until they had it in their hands. Then I was like, oh, this is amazing. And that took me in a roundabout way back to graphic design, which is kind of what I dipped my toe in and out of before I was a teacher. But I didn't like the kind of stuff you ended up doing, the deadlines and the pressure, and if I'm really honest, people who are not creatively minded at all. And so I actually ended up going back into graphic design for a bit from working out that wasn't working, the teaching stuff. And I really enjoyed it actually for a while, just being freelance. And I started doing a lot of branding and a lot of kind of marketing materials, which is what I used to teach the kids how to do. So I was putting into practice my own teaching really. And then Pod, husband, sent me a link to somebody who was after somebody to design some artwork to be pressed into leather for some leather armour. And I ended up getting the contract for doing design sheets for this company. And I loved it. Absolutely loved it. It embraced all my geekiness and the creativity, and then I ended up with a hide of leather myself and designing the armour to go with the design, and it kind of snowballed from there to the point where I was just like, I want to get up for work. Looking forward to going to work. So I kind of tied up all the graphic design clients and see ya, and decided that this was what I wanted to do, and I've loved it ever since. And that was in, I think this is our 6th year doing leatherwork specifically. Yes, we do need to change location, and a lot sooner than we would have anticipated. We'd kind of penciled it in for maybe in 2 or 3 years, with a few tweaks to arrangements in here. But neighbours with new babies and changes to our rental agreement, which is not exactly supportive of running the business from here, means that we're trying to look at the local industrial space, which convenient is literally a 5-minute walk away. But it's, you know, not as easy as just going, oh yes, well we'll do that, because we need to put some more things under our belt. We need some new tools so that we can start getting work out quicker, and a bigger range of work as well. And we're very cramped in here, so it's very hard running 2 businesses when we're both busy. So we have to kind of play tag in the workshop, right? I've got to go dye this now, can you take a break and do something in the office for half an hour? So yeah, basically we need a bigger workshop. And we decided, after previous experience with a bank who didn't even read the business plan before just looking at it and going, no. We thought, well, we've got actually a pretty good range of support and fans and followers, social media and outside of social media. So we thought we'd give crowdfunding a go. It's, I don't know, it's a tough time for everybody, isn't it? But we thought if we didn't try it, we'd never know. So it's underway at the minute. It runs out on May 30th at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So you can find us at crowdfunder.co.uk, and it's /growing-cosmic-workshop. And we've got a few different rewards from £5 to £1,000, depending on how generous people are feeling. So we're fingers crossed we can try and get as much as we can, and we'll be grateful for every penny, quite frankly. And hopefully that'll give us the boost we need to kind of move house, because one of the things we really want to do is run workshops. You know, I want people in there, I want to be able to share knowledge, and we just don't have the space, and health and safety would throw a fit if they saw it in here, that we had people in here. So how do I go from looking at a costume and making it in leather? I think the first thing is research. You can never have too many reference pictures. You can never look at too many books. You can never watch the film and keep pausing it and still from it. You can never do that enough, because you'll always spot something different, whether it's a texture, a fastening mechanism. But you do have to just use it as a starting point, because when they're making costumes for film, they're using sometimes different materials. You've got to then translate, especially Wonder Woman. So they body cast Gal Gadot, sculpt the costume in clay and cast that in rubber that she could literally wiggle in and out of. That's why there's no seams and there's no fastenings and stuff. So obviously when you're trying to translate that into a different material, you've got to think more on a practical level. Gaming costumes are renowned for it, because even when you've got designers who really, they look at the textures of the cloth, they do buckles that are the wrong way round and fastenings that just don't physically work in the real world, and you've got to adapt all that to actually fit your customers as well. So that's the first kind of things you've got to look at. Sizing, obviously, things like the Wonder Woman corset, to go back to that. If you've got somebody who's really short in the body, you've got to adapt. So you'd have the look of it, but obviously you wouldn't be screen accurate, because you'd have to adapt the pattern work and the panels to fit that person's body. Or if they're longer in the body, you know, things are going to be stretched out and slightly bigger. We've got a really good reputation for things being screen accurate. We're quite proud of that, because we put the hours in. I think people sometimes think you're being a bit funny when they go, oh, but how do you know that it looks like that? And what evidence you got? And I'm just like, I'm not sharing like 26 hours of research with you. I'm sorry. If you want to buy it. But yeah, and I do like the fact that we have a reputation for screen accuracy, but it's not the be all and end all. And sometimes you have to take artistic license, and you've got to make peace with that, which is difficult, especially for my husband, who's a perfectionist and will spend hours, even if it's not physically able to create it, whether the buckle's the wrong way around on the picture or whatever. We'll work a way around it so that it looks, even if it might go together slightly differently. My husband is as I said, he's my partner in Leathery Crimes. He's actually the reason I got into leatherwork. He was already doing leatherwork. He'll curse me. Pod was actually already doing leatherwork before I ever even looked at it as a anything. I wasn't even messing around. I was helping him out in bits. But basically, when we were kind of doing everything, we were more of a creative agency than anything. We were doing themed room dressings. This is the story about a completely different side to the business. We were doing themed room dressings, and we wanted to put together one kick-ass theme that we could literally just keep in storage. And when people wanted to hire it, go, boom, we've got all this stuff that we can hire you. And the film theme that we went with was Pirates of the Caribbean. And because my husband's really, really into history, he did a lot of research. And he actually ended up getting on with the pirate reenactors and he started putting his own costume together. We got sidetracked away from room themes slightly at this point, or away from doing a new one anyway. And he couldn't find the leatherwork that he wanted because he wanted it historically accurate. So he decided he was going to make his own. And that kind of snowballed quite naturally into that he then started supplying other reenactors with historical leatherwork and set up the business Letters of Marque, which was just a trading name of Cosmic Workshop at that time. And then obviously when he accidentally got me into leatherwork, then we're a partnership. So I help him with his cutting and dyeing and getting orders out, and he helps me with sewing, and he's an actual whiz at research. If you need anything researching and sourcing, you're trying to find a peculiar little greebly or gadget that's not part of a belt, like Star Wars classic example, and you go, I recognise it, I know it's a something, and 3 hours later, boom, he's found it. It's this that they've used. You can get it from these online shops or scrapyards or whatever. He's brilliant at micromanaging me, which you would think would drive a wife crazy, but it really couldn't do without him at all. My least favourite item to make. Let me think. Could it be the one item that I no longer make because I hate making them? It would be the Kylo Ren neck seals. We were asked if we could create the neck seal that goes between Kylo Ren's helmet and the rest of his costume. And I was like, it's kind of, you have to use the soft kind of clothing grade fabric, which was a new entity for us. So I've always worked in more armour grades, a minimum of like 2 mil. And I was like, sure, why not? Because I do like a challenge, and I'm a sucker for trying to develop new things, keep people happy. This customer just happened to be part of one of the Star Wars garrisons, the kind of slightly official cosplay groups, which was great actually, because I could get instant yeses and nos on whether we were going in the right direction. So we found a bit of, I think we had an odd bit of lambskin. It's soft enough just for really expensive lambskin that we just knocked up a mock-up of. No idea if it was going to work or not. And so photos are going back and forth. Anyway, we nailed the shape. There was a lengthy argument that you're sniggering about how many layers was on Kylo Ren's, and I was swearing blind it was one number, and people were going, no, it's another number. I was right. But we got the big nod from the garrisons that we'd got it right. I didn't realise how many of those I would have to make, considering he's the character I like least in the entire Star Wars universe, and I've made many. I think in the space of a year we must have done over 100 of them. And to begin with, we were hand stitching them, which takes hours, like 6 to 8 hours just of hand stitching. So we decided to invest in a sewing machine, which is evil. It's an evil sewing machine, and it hated me. I have the same relationship with leather sewing machines that I have with printers. So that went well, as you can imagine. So when the sewing machine works, it did make it a speedier process. But they're so fiddly, and I made so many of them. And then I'm sorry to say I had one customer who broke any motivation that I had to ever make them ever again through various personal adaptations that he wanted to make to it, and I lost the will to live and promptly took them down off the website and the Etsy shop and swore blind I'd never make another one again. And I think I've stuck to it bar maybe 1 or 2. But actually one of the main reasons was I used to use a really nice leather for it from our supplier, and then they just struggled to get it. The last couple of neck seal orders that we had were delayed by about 3 weeks because of issues getting hold of the leather that I wanted. I think creative craft industry, you're right, when people say creative industries, they do think more digital. I've realised that recently actually because of an event that I was looking at, and it was all about creative industries, and it turns out it was just all graphic designers and stuff. I think the craft side to creative industry for years has been overlooked as not really anything serious. They think crafts, you think mums knitting at, you know, things at the weekend, sell at the craft markets, and there's a beautiful tradition of craft markets in Britain, I think, that a lot of places don't have. But I do think over the last 10 years you've seen a steady growth of it being taken more seriously, and people like mums, the whole mumpreneur kind of give it a big, huge boost when that became a kind of catchphrase keyword, because they were bringing in more than just a bit of extra pennies at craft fairs, and with things like Etsy and Folksy specialising almost in appealing to those kind of businesses, it was relatively easy to set one up and relatively easy for it to go international and grow to a point where you could make a small living off it, because a lot more people had access to your work than people who are going to these little craft fairs. Suddenly you've got people in Belgium buying off you know, a mum of 3 in Salford. So, and I think people now see more value. I think for a long time people thought, oh, that looks easy, you know, that's obviously easy for them to make, and there was almost a lack of perceived value in the things that people were producing, whereas now I think with more awareness of the time and effort and skill that goes into making things, whether it's a piece of wood turn, tree branch, or a piece of leatherwork. Look how many leatherworkers there are now. I mean, in all honesty, there was always leatherworkers in the UK, but now, especially with people doing YouTube videos like we were talking about earlier, YouTube videos and social media have helped them connect, so you're aware of them more than you used to be, which is great for tips and sharing knowledge, which, you know, was kind of missing. Jackie of all trades, because I see it as a good thing, but I can put my hand to pretty much anything. Give me a material and something to make out of it, and I can generally get to grips with it and do a good job. But with the leatherwork, I've kind of found my thing, you know, out of everything that I'm kind of good at. I don't want to be kind of good at leatherwork, I want to be bloody amazing at leatherwork. So but it's that whole self-doubt thing, and I'll always have that little bit of self-doubt that I'm actually as good as I hope I am. How has Tandy helped me in my leather crafting journey? It's bloody handy having the shop just down the road. That's got to be number one. You need a bottle of dye at the last minute, or a buckle, or you know, the Aussie leather goo that we seem to almost consume by the gallon in this place. That's really, really useful. But probably, if I'm really honest, the best thing is you guys. You're a fountain of knowledge, and I know you guys are kind of learning on the job as well when you first opened and stuff. And it's great having like-minded people to just go down. I don't know if you remember, I came in once and I think I was struggling to work something out, and we'd nattered and gone off on tangents, but by the end of the conversation it suddenly dawned on us exactly how we could do it. And I was like, seals, wasn't it? It's probably something to do with the neck seals. But that's great, because I'm in the middle of suburbia. It's, you know, it's one thing. Obviously Pod is my first person who we bat ideas around with, and we'll try and work out solutions to problems that we fall over. But to have somebody completely outside of the business to just bounce ideas off, I'll go, I've got to do this, fasten this to this, and this isn't working, and this isn't working, and for somebody else to go, how about we thought about doing this? And you're thinking, no, but I will try that. It's not always going to work, but it's great just to have that kind of interaction. Tandy will help us moving forward in the same ways, really. It's, you know, we're getting to be a bigger business, where our turnaround and turnover, you know, in terms of products going out, is always increasing. You know, we develop new stuff each month, and which means we need, you know, more materials, more products. And like, the best thing about it is we can come down and chat. I mean, even if we just come down for a cup of tea, even if I've got to make it myself, I love the camaraderie. I love that you have an open house in terms of anybody can go in there, anybody can try the tool. Actually, that's awesome. The fact that if there's a new tool that I'm wanting to try, the fact that I can just lay hands on it, I don't have to order it in off the internet, try it out, discover it's no good or anything, or it's the wrong size or something. You know, I can literally take the item with me to the shop. So Alex, I need to try this, this and this, and I can have that tool in my hand and trying it out literally in the shop and go bazinga, brilliant. One piece of advice I'd give to anybody in the start of trying to make a business out of anything, or even just creating anything, get other people involved. They might not be the same skill set as you, but you can't do everything yourself. A knowledgeable business person taught me that from a different perspective. He was talking about you've got sales and accounting, and creatives are not natural people for running a business in its entirety. And you have a natural skill set that you kind of flow into quite naturally. And if you struggle with any of those other areas, then you need to get those people involved. The first thing we did was get an accountant on board, because quite frankly, I had to put the business under in 12 months, because maths, figures, budgeting, and all that kind of side of things, dealing with the books, is not where my skills lie. Yeah, I did it for a few years. I didn't do it particularly well, I don't think, but investing in the accountant was a godsend, because that freed up a big chunk of my time every year, for starters, that left me with more time to create stuff. I know I'm babbling pretty well, but when we're at events and things, I get awful nerves, and I always think I talk complete rubbish and that nobody's going to want to talk to me. And, you know, so I have mates, my minions, my famous minions, who are brilliant at just going out and chatting to people, and when people come into the store, they, you know, have the basic knowledge and know how the business runs in terms of deadlines and things like that, and they can interact with people, and that's brilliant, because it brings me out, Michelle, as well, because I've got other people there as kind of mental backup. And also when the store gets busy, there's 3, 4, 5 of us sometimes, you know, chatting to people. On the flip side, I learned that from like running the business perspective. What I've learned personally is to get other skill sets involved, such as people who can deal with fabric, seamstress. So I work closely with Tors from Obtogs, because she's got equally a good reputation in the cosplay community for the quality of her work. So if I'm putting a quote together and they'll say, well, how much do the shirt and the trousers? I go, not something I can deal with, unfortunately. Hit up Oddtogs, she'll quote you, and if she can fit you in, she'll fit you in. And the same goes, then Oddtogs will go, you know what, leather's not my bag. Go see Jules at Cosmic Workshop, tell her I sent you. And it's great, because if you're stuck on something, there's a lot of crossover with people who do seamstress work and leather work, really, to the point where I'll message her and go, do you know what, how do I alter this bit? Pretend it's a piece of clothing, how would you alter it? And it gives you a different perspective on how you're dealing with it. Again, it's that bouncing ideas and problems off people. You know, people who are particularly good at drawing up patterns, you know, luckily for me it's Pod. He's exceptionally good at templating, which I can do, but again it's time consuming and I can be doing other stuff, whereas he really enjoys it and doesn't mind sitting down for 2-3 hours templating something out for me. So, you know, looking for other creatives, photographers, when you're making a product, especially if you're no good at taking a picture. I am so basic at taking pictures, so getting other people involved. But yeah, get other people involved and it's better for you.